Give us your name, and then you have 90 seconds after that to answer the following question. What do you think are the most important solutions at the state level to address sea level rise and flooding?
My name is Adam Morley. I am running for State Representative District 24. That is Southern St. Johns County, all of Flagler County, and northwest Volusia. What can we do at the state level? So to start with, sea level is rising. Nobody's debating that. Hardening shorelines is not the answer. Hardening shoreline, fighting against nature. We live on a high energy coastline. It's not going to stop it. It's going to cost a lot of money, and continuing to pour money into trying to harden it is not going to work. We need to look more long term. We need to look at moving a lot, and this is going to scare some people. We're going to need to start stopping the development right along the coast. We need to stop putting the infrastructure in harm's way. We know where harm's way is. We need to stop putting infrastructure there. Moving away from the coast, using natural barriers. We know about natural barriers and how they break storm surge and slow erosion. So we need to start putting more of that in, not hardening shorelines. Let nature do what it does best.
Okay. All right. The first question I have now after that is, according to flood IQ data in 2032, that's 14 years from now, sea level rise plus a hurricane category 3 would cause flooding-related damage in 32,766 homes in Florida. What can we do now to protect the areas involved?
Work on resiliency, figure out ways to get the properties that are at the most risk raised up through either grants or other means to protect the properties. Otherwise, again, going back to what the state can do, the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs that was abolished, we should bring that back and have them use this data, use this information so that as we start moving forward, they can make recommendations on what we need to do, because the general population, the general public they really just want to move here, they just want to live here, and if we don't have somebody allowing the information readily accessible to, losing my train of thought here, somebody's calling me. So if we don't allow people the information, they're going to continue to build here, and we need to make sure that they know what they're up against.
Okay. What role should the state education system play in education on sea level rise? Is there an education program that you would champion?
Straight answer, no. There isn't any that I'm aware of that I would currently champion. I'm very open to any education on that matter. That is not something that's huge on my platform, to be honest, so I'm not going to give it lip service, but I am open to giving receiving any information that the state would do. 30 seconds, okay. We need to restore balance in the state legislature, so me running as a Democrat, there's not a whole lot that I'm going to be able to do except for move the needle. What we need is to start getting people talking again, getting that balance restored at the state legislature so that we can create the dialogue and allow for solutions to move forward. Currently, we have a supermajority of Republican control in Tallahassee. Until that breaks, until they break the monopoly, we don't have a whole lot of room to gain.
I'm going to drop a question here with all due apologies. You talked about resilience and funding it. What would be your limits on using taxpayer money to fund both resilience, mitigation, and recovery? For example, all along the beach coast, people who lose their homes due to rising sea levels and turn and ask for government assistance. What would be your stand on whether they should get it or not, and how much?
I have a very strong stance that the majority of these homes that are built there, that people have purchased. The information has been there long before they built or bought those properties, that that's high risk, that that's not a good place to build, that's not a good place to live. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for people who put themselves in harm's way and then ask for government assistance.
Would you go back, let's say, draw a line at 50 years or 100 years, something handed down? I don't think any of the homes are that old, but you know where I'm going with that. 50 years ago, I don't think people were really aware of oncoming tidal rise. So, do you?
1964, Hurricane Dora hit. You could see the pictures on that wall right there of houses falling into the ocean.
Okay.
We live on a high energy coastline. We've known it for a long time.
Okay. Next question. As sea levels rise and coastal Floridians are displaced from their homes, there is the potential for large numbers of climate refugees to migrate to different areas of the state. How do you propose the state prepare for this potential shift in population?
Back to what I mentioned earlier, the DCA, Department of Community Affairs, that handed down recommendations and helped assist local governments and municipalities in smart growth and management rather than uncontrolled growth. We can prepare for this, but doing it piecemeal, county by county, is not the way to do it. We need to take a larger state approach, bringing the Department of Community Affairs back, that takes a step back from the issue and looks at the big picture rather than county by county or city by city, and says, these are the areas that we need to focus on and leave these areas as buffers and to help slow the issues.
Okay. What is your single most significant personal or professional accomplishment regarding sea level rise, the environment, energy conservation, or sustainability?
I love how the crowd laughs because that's a really long list and I don't think I had enough time.
This is your moment to brag.
This is my moment to brag. Okay. 2008, I started a private recycling company, sold it in 2015. My home is completely off grid, 100% solar power. Started the litigator project, which is, I heard the plastic question earlier. We do waterway cleanups, but as far as to what my largest accomplishment has been would probably be going solar. Removing my house from the fossil fuel industry by not depending on fossil fuel for energy.
Well, following up on that, let me ask you this question. How would you address the root cause of sea level rise in state legislation?
I'd level the playing field, remove a lot of the subsidies and favoritism shown to the fossil fuel industry, allow solar and renewable energy to compete on a level playing field rather than being held up by legislation that is currently and actively being passed to hold back renewable energy such as solar.
Okay. You want to take a break? Have a glass of water? You're okay? All right.
Thank you.
Start to have some empathy. The state legislature has implemented or attempted to implement a number of preemptions on environmental issues. Preemptions on regulating plastic bags, fertilizer, polystyrene, which is styrofoam. What's your opinion on
tree ordinances?
Beg pardon?
Tree ordinances. Preemption on trees.
What's your opinion on home rule versus state rule on the environmental front, especially with regards to sea level rise?
So I believe in home rule, and I will be a champion of home rule in the state legislature. What the state is doing right now with their, I can't even call it a newfound excitement towards these preemption laws, we need to make sure that the special interests that are behind all of these preemption laws are not having an outsized voice in the matter. We have well-informed, engaged citizens at the local level that are pushing for solutions, and their hands are tied because all these decisions are going to Tallahassee. I would like to bring back more home rule and more local control on the environmental front. We do still need a strong DEP. We still need to have state-level organizations for the overall stepping back, taking a look at the big picture. But solutions start locally and they spread from there. But they need the ability to start. And if we continue to pass preemption laws, those solutions don't get started.
Okay, thank you. In 2009, shortly before the Deepwater Horizon disaster, the Florida legislature moved to open up our nearshore waters to offshore oil and gas exploration. Now on the ballot in November, the Constitutional Revision Committee has placed an amendment to permanently ban nearshore drilling off of our coast. What's your position on nearshore drilling?
Vote yes on the ban. vote yes on the ban. We do not need offshore drilling, seismic testing, or even fracking in the state. We need to be moving in a different direction completely.
Thank you. We're just skipping right through here. This is good. Low-income residents are frequently disproportionately impacted by hurricanes. For example, government phones for low-income residents in Florida called Lifeline phones provide 250 minutes of free talk time, whereas resolving landlord disputes, FEMA claims, and other issues in a post-disaster environment have typically used up more than those free minutes. How do you think we can improve recovery assistance, I guess in this area and others, to low-income residents? I don't think they just want to focus on the phones. But
Okay, I wasn't quite sure where you were going with that. So one more time?
The last line or the whole thing?
Whole thing, please.
The whole thing. Low-income residents are frequently disproportionately impacted by hurricanes. For example, government phones for low-income residents in Florida, called Lifeline phones, give them 250 minutes of free talk time, whereas resolving landlord disputes, FEMA claims, and other issues in a post-disaster environment have typically used up more than those free minutes. How do you think we can improve recovery assistance to low-income residents? If you have any ideas on this or in general?
Okay, maybe in general, I would say the internet has come a long way, and that should probably move towards allowing more access to that, having it easier so that people can connect online, so not just being telephones, that they would be able to connect to those services via online sources as well, and have those online sources brought in to the lower income communities through grants or other areas, so that it's not just on the residents to be able to afford or bring in those services, but those services we should figure out a way to be able to provide those services to these communities that are impacted at a rate or a cost that's not cost prohibitive.
Okay, thank you. What do you think of the role of state government is in mitigating coastal flooding? It's maybe a little repetitive, but if you want to hit on it.
It plays a huge role. Like, we are a peninsula. We are pretty much surrounded by water, and so it's a huge role that the Florida legislature and the state needs to be involved in.
And okay, what policies can be put into place to avoid the long power outages we experienced in Hurricane Irma?
I didn't have any power outages. That's kind of part of the answer as well. We need to move towards, we have the technology to start creating more self-sufficient dwellings. We have rooftops sitting in direct sunlight. We don't need to lose all of this energy through transmission from solar, wind farms, coal-fired power plants. All of that energy that is lost through transmission through these lines that are subject to damage during storms. We need to start moving to more self-sufficient structures. We can do that through policy. Policy does matter. So if we are able to move towards more solar-friendly legislation that allows residents to be able to provide themselves with power during times of storms, rather than having FPL say you can't do that. I think that would go a long way.
Glass of water?
Sure.
I'm
out.
We're gonna just change gears here just a bit. This summer, algae blooms once again threaten Florida's tourism industry and the health of our freshwater lakes, canals, and beaches. Down Okeechobee, for example. The Florida legislature has been trying to deal with this issue for several years now. What sort of solutions would you propose or support if elected?
Have they been trying to fix it?
And the question occurred to me too.
My answer would be no, they have not been trying to fix it. They are just kicking it down the road. It's a huge issue. It's not just South Florida, it's all over the state. In particular, Lake Okeechobee, it seemed like a good idea at the time to drain the Everglades. It obviously turned out to be a bad idea, but we have now given the sugar industry, for one, a lot of the subsidies to come in and take up that space between the southern rim of the Lake Okeechobee and the Everglades. We have now resorted to jettisoning this water that's filling up Lake Okeechobee, which has high levels of nutrients and phosphates. We're now jettisoning that out to the coast.
Would you support land purchase?
Absolutely, yes.
Immediately?
Amendment 1.
Yes.
In Amendment 1, they specifically talked about Everglades restoration, and that was a land and water acquisition amendment. So, yes, purchasing land south of the lake to clean and transfer water into the Everglades, which is now at less than 50% of its historic flow, while reducing the flow out to the coasts. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that that water, even if it was 100% clean, healthy water, the volume of water that we are emptying out of the lake into both coasts, into these saltwater estuaries, for the period of time that we're entering and jettisoning it out into there, is still going to damage and destroy those estuaries. It doesn't matter that it's polluted water. It matters that it's polluted water. It could be completely fresh, clean water, destroying a saltwater estuary. So we cannot just talk about cleaning up this water. We have to talk about restoring as much of the historic flow as possible, because you're getting 3 birds with one stone. You're putting fresh water back into the Everglades that desperately needs it, and you're reducing these massive amounts of freshwater discharges out to the coast that are destroying the estuaries on either side of the state.
Okay. Are you concerned about a collapse of the insurance agencies in light of the potential financial burden to those agencies when there's a major flooding event? And if so, how can we mitigate this? If we're going to have recurring floods, this probably should be something we look at.
It should be something that we look at. I don't have a whole lot of answers or ideas on that. I work well collaboratively, so folks who have more understanding of the issue are always welcome to educate me on it.
Okay. And this would probably be your closing. This gives you the opportunity to take big picture again. Have the recent storm events that changed the way that communities are being developed in your mind? As you drive along A1A, you see many homes that are for sale, have been sold, and are being rebuilt. What can and should be our community's posture to be more sustainable and to be stronger regarding sea level rise and sustainability, resilience? It's a convoluted question. You want me to try it again?
Please.
Okay.
I'm glad you picked up on that.
Have recent storm events changed the way that communities are being developed? That's the first part of it. And as you drive along A1A, you see many homes for sale, have been sold, and being rebuilt, almost impervious to the coming tidal rise. What can and should be done in our communities to make the communities more sustainable and stronger?
We can cut it out with the unsustainable growth in the area. especially down south towards southern St. John's and my area. This just puts more pressure on the resources and what we have down there that provide that buffer and that resiliency in the face of these storms. Talking about sea level rise, we do have the issue of saltwater intrusion into the aquifer. As that rises, if we continue to put more residents in that area, the aquifer drawdown is going to continue, allowing more salt water potentially to contaminate our water sources, so that is a big issue. We also need the aquifer recharge zones, so allowing for these national developers just to come in and kind of bully our local county and municipalities into allowing them to change zoning or to develop areas when really we need to be preserving those for the future generations so that we're not having to deal with that.
Congratulations, you've gone solo for 20 minutes. This man deserves a lot of Adam Morley.